we have your weekend Apple news. Welcome back to the channel. So what do we do on the weekends for all the new people joining us? We go through the Apple news. We have some fun. I actually have a beer. We sit back and relax, and we go through usually about 20 different Apple-related stories. I show you a whole bunch of Apple-related sales. Today I have a Hofbräu beer here, Heffenweiss, which I'm not a fan of Heffenweiss, but this is the best brewery, I think. One of them in Germany. I like it. Overall, though, let's sit back and relax, and we'll go through the Apple news. You guys can post comments at the end of it. Let's get into it. Okay, so the very first story here is kind of interesting because it gives us some real-world tests with the M4 Mac Mini. Take a look at this. This is from Mac Rumors. It says Mac Mini with M4 and M4 Pro reviews. Smaller design and pro performance make a major upgrade by Hartley Charlton. So the thing I wanted to show you is I'm just going to scroll down to where I want to show you. First is gaming. Look at this. It says outside of benchmarks, the Mac Mini impressed me by running Lies of P at 1440p with maxed out graphics at 60 frames per second. It even managed to run the game in 4K with medium graphics, but the frame rate only hovered around 30 if you go into 4K. Then he says, I'm not a huge surprise, but he says, what's more important, that the GPU is powerful enough to run modern games at a more reasonable resolution. Resident Evil 4 and No Man's Sky also had a steady 60 frames per second and 1440p. So he was actually able to run those two games in, same thing, 1440p over 60 frames per second, which is pretty crazy. Then he did another test with AI down here. It says to test the Mac Mini's AI capabilities, I used the Whisper transcription app to transcribe an hour and 9-minute long episode of the podcast. That took 2 minutes and 9 seconds using the small language model. In comparison, the M4 powered 14-inch MacBook Pro took 3 minutes and 3 seconds, while the M3 14-inch MacBook Pro took 3 minutes and 37 seconds. These figures tell us that we're getting, a lot faster between the M3 and the M4. Not a huge difference, but it's still a pretty big increase, obviously, when you go with percentages there. And then the thing that's really crazy here is, I think he's using just the straight M4 Mac here because he mentions that the fans are not even, you can't even hear them when this thing ramps up. And we're going to have to test that ourselves, but he says right here, Apple revamped thermal system for the Mini keeps the M4 models running quietly. He says, even when I'm in a deep Lightroom photo session, I don't hear the fan. I'm certain the M4 Pro's extra GPU cores would make the raw edits even faster, but the regular M4 is up to the task for most photo work, he's saying right here. Elsewhere, the machine has rarely missed a step, no matter what I throw it at. He's talking about the straight M4 as well. So pretty crazy, right? It's a cool article. It just gives you some real-world tests just from someone testing it initially. I thought it was interesting. Okay, so we know like all the new Macs here, at least the ones that come with cameras, not the Mac Minis, they're going to get updated with that 12 megapixel camera. And a lot of people, it's going to get center stage. A lot of people complain that maybe that's not going to be as good as the old cameras. I think we got confirmation that it is right here from Mac Rumors. iMac with M4 chip reviews, nano texture display option, and center stage camera tested. So he likes the nano texture. I'm not going to get into that. Let's just go down to where the actual camera was because I think this is the most interesting part of it at all. So right here it says the M1 and the M3 Max have a 1080p FaceTime camera that was fine. It worked but wasn't impressive. With the M4 iMac, and I believe this is going to be the same camera on the MacBook Pros, Apple finally upgraded to a 12 megapixel center stage camera, the same one that Apple introduced in the Mac lineup in 2022 through the Studio Display. But basically, there's some differences there as well. Why we had to wait over a year or two for this to see this on the Macs, I don't know. But here's basically a difference here. So look at this picture here. This is Jason Snell of 6 Colors, shared by side-by-side comparison of the Studio Display camera right here, which is the display on this side, versus the new iMac camera over here. And you can see a noticeable upgrade and difference there. So he's going on to say that they don't say how many megapixels this is. Well, I guess it's 12 megapixel, obviously, but they're not saying how many, if it's 1080p or if it's a little bit higher than that. But they are just giving you the 12 megapixel this time, which is a unique thing, obviously, for the camera. But you can see the upgraded difference here. If you look at this picture really closely, there is a noticeable difference. So the good news is it's not going to get as bad as like the Studio Display where you have center stage and all of a sudden it looks really bad. It's going to look really good now. And I think that's a big upgrade on a lot of people's either MacBook Pros or iMacs. Okay, so with all the M4 Macs coming out, what does that mean for the other models? They go way down in price. So I got a couple sales here. This first one is a sale that I think is one of the best I've seen. I mean, it's probably a computer most people should pick up if they're on an extreme budget. But take a look here. This is from, I'll have a link to this. This is from Amazon. It's a 2022, mind it's an M2, right here, M2, but it's a 13.6-inch Air. You can see it right here. but 16 gigs of RAM, 256, but 16 gigs of RAM, M2 Air, $799 right now for 16 gigs of RAM. So here it's 20% off, usually $999. So obviously you were able to get these things about $799 before, but not with 16 gigs of RAM. I know Apple's starting to do this, but I mean, that's an incredible price. So if you're looking for just a budget, you know, M2's fast. I have one sitting right here and it's fast enough for everything that I throw at it. It's gonna be fast enough for any home user, student, you know, going to work and stuff like that. 16 gigs of RAM is the key here, $799. So here we go, a budget. I think one of the best deals I've seen. But let's keep moving. Another incredible deal here is from Best Buy, believe it or not. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but this is like another one that you might want to pick up. It's not, you know, again, you have to think about it with the M4s, but look over here. This is the MacBook Pro 14-inch laptop with the M3 chip. So it's the base, last year's base model MacBook Pro. It's got only 8 gigs, unfortunately, but 512 gig SSD. $1,099. Obviously, it was down from whatever it was before, but now it says saves $300, but it was really like usually $1,599, so it's kind of crazy here. But $1,099 for this right now. That's the MacBook Pro. What is it? 14-inch, 8 gigs and 512 gigabyte SSD for almost, you know, a little over $1,000. Well, I guess $1,100, right? Let's just be honest. But still, that's the cheapest I've ever seen it. Should you pick it up? I don't know, but it's still pretty good. And then we're seeing a lot of deals like this. I mean, it's not the best deal in the world again, but it's something, if you're looking for the 16-inch MacBook Pro, you can't go wrong with something like this. Here it is from, again, Best Buy. It says 16-inch MacBook Pro, M3 chip, and so it's going to be built for quality Apple Intelligence, 18 gigs of RAM, and then it's going to have a 512 gigabyte SSD. But this is all the way down to $1899 for the 16-inch. So obviously this is the kind of the base model. It's usually what, it says $23.99. I think it's usually $24.99, but it's $500 off right now. But still, the 16-inch you can get, you know, for $18.99. So if you need that bigger screen and 18 gigs is enough for you, 512, that's not a bad idea. Again, it's harder now because the M4s are out. You're going to get the extra space. You're going to get a little extra, you know, a memory as well. So you got to make those decisions as you kind of move along. And this one's a tough one, but they're coming down, which is the key. And when Christmas hits, they're probably going to skyrocket down. Okay, so with everyone buying these new Thunderbolt 5 ports on all their new Macs with the M4s coming out, there's just not a lot of stuff available for it. Especially external storage is the big problem here. So let's take a look. Now, OWC has kind of the first one, or the first pre-built one that's came out, or at least one of them at least. Here it is from Mac Rumors. OWC's Thunderbolt 5 external SSD for latest Macs is impressively fast. So if you kind of scroll down here, it says Apple's new Mac Mini with the M4 Pro chip and MacBook Pro models with the M4 Pro and M4 Max support faster Thunderbolt 5, which we know. But and now OWC came out with this little external drive here, but it's Thunderbolt 5. What does that mean here? So down here it says up to 6 gigabit per second transfer speeds, or 6,000 megabytes per second. Now, I did a whole bunch of tests. Check out my channel where I went through a whole bunch of Thunderbolt 4 enclosures, put my own SSDs. I was up to get up to like 3,300 megabytes per second. This is almost double that, up to around 6,000 on this one right here. But is it going to cost you, right? These things are still kind of expensive, but not too bad. It's 2 terabytes is $399, so $400, but still way cheaper than Apple, right? It's got to be way cheaper than Apple. And then $599 for 4 terabytes. That's getting up there. I don't think I would pay that. You can only pick it up here in the OWC page here. It's called the Envoy Ultra. You can see 2 terabytes, $399. But still, 2 terabytes on Apple, if you pay the Apple tax, is a lot more than that, right? So this is going to be a good, at least a good start. I don't recommend doing that, though. I'd recommend just going with Thunderbolt 4 enclosures. I did a whole bunch on my channel. I tested them. I'll put up a video here. You can check that out. Check out that video. But they're all like 2,800 to 30-something hundred megabytes per second. They can do anything. But if you don't want to go through all that mess and build them yourself, which takes literally 5 seconds, but if you don't want to do that, like here's one from SanDisk. It's a professional 4 terabyte Pro, so it's 4 terabytes up to 3,000 megabytes per second. That's what they're stating here, 40 gigabit per second. So Thunderbolt 3 though. So I don't know how fast you're going to get there. I haven't tested it. $380 though for 4 terabytes for $380 versus what the other one was like $599. So that's a huge difference there. I'm just trying to scroll down here to see if I can find some kind of speed test in here and see what people are actually getting. But yeah, look in here. So this is one here. So it looks like 2662, 2840 something. So you get the idea. That's got to be on a Mac too. So if I go back up to the top, I mean, that might be the winner there. I mean, that's all you really need for 380, and you get 4 terabytes instead of the 2 terabytes on the faster storage. I would, personally go with this. Okay, so this next one's something that we've all been waiting for, and I think everyone's kind of waiting for them to do something here. The Studio Display, right? Now, maybe this isn't exactly what you thought or wanted, but Mac Rumors. Apple reportedly working on a 90 hertz Studio Display, iMac and iPad Air. So it says a new rumor suggests that Apple's developing a 90 hertz display technology that could make its way into future studio displays, iPad Airs, and a 24-inch iMac, all of which currently feature 60 hertz refresh rates, which we know. There's a picture of it. So, I mean, it says, according to the anonymous source, the 90 hertz display technology will debut first in the next generation M3 iPad Air, expected in early 2025, before expanding to other products. The 24-inch iMac, which it basically just got the M4, wouldn't likely see this until the end of 2025. It doesn't say much about the studio, but it says it might be coming. So I heard in the next couple of months. I don't know. This is a huge rumor. We don't know if it's true. Just I don't want to get everybody excited, but still, why would they do 90 hertz instead of 120? Maybe there's some kind of technology reason with 5K that we don't know about. Maybe it's not as easy or it's super expensive. At least it's something, right? I mean, 90K is more acceptable than 60. It would give you, what is that? A big difference, right? 50% difference. It's a big difference, and I think we would all accept it. Okay, so with all the new Macs coming out, you're probably wondering, should I get the 256, the 512, the 1 terabyte? Storage is a big problem still on Apple products because they're really stingy on the space, right? Here's another option for you right here if you didn't know about it, Apple Insider. How to install App Store apps on an external SSD. This is now possible, a lot easier now with Sequoia 5.1. So if you look down here, it says Apple's macOS Sequoia now lets you install apps on external SSD drives instead of taking up the space on your internal one, but it doesn't tell you this. Here's how to do it. So it doesn't tell you this, right? It says it right there because they don't want you to know. Only the insiders know. It's kind of crazy, but it's in here. So it says even the latest Macs, all starting with 256 gig of storage, that space fills up fast, which we know. So basically, it allows you to do this where you can move all of your, not all of them, it's a lot of your external stuff over to an external, your apps from the App Store over to a external drive. But they have to be over, this is the caveat. However, there's an important caveat. This new feature basically meant on space saving one, and it only applies to apps that are larger than 1 gigabyte in size. So if you scroll down here, how to do this. Open the Mac App Store. From the App Store menu, choose Settings. If the option is there, click Download and install large apps on a separate disk. I'll show you this in a second. From the drop-down menu, choose an external drive. So you go into Settings, and this should be here. Now, he's saying like you have to have a drive already connected in there, like an external drive, or it may not show up for all it's worth. Just make sure you have your external drive in there. If it does, it's going to say right here, download and install large apps to a separate disk. You'll see the little fine print, apps larger than 1 gigabyte will be downloaded and installed on the disk you choose. So it has to be larger than 1 gigabyte of space there. But you can choose the disk there, and then you can offload all that stuff to an external disk drive, like a Thunderbolt 4, Thunderbolt 5, like we just talked about, and you're golden, right? You save a lot of space this way. People just don't know this, but here it is. Take a screenshot of that and try it, but you have to be on 5.1 or later Sequoia, otherwise you won't see it. All right, this next one's kind of cool if you're obviously an Apple lover and you like the new M4 chips coming out. I just thought this was kind of fun to watch. So it says generation gaps, how much faster Apple Silicon gets with each release. So long story short, I thought there's some cool charts in here. I'm going to open these up. Let me just see if I can click on these. I'm going to open these up in a different window here, and we'll see if we can actually see what this looks like because they're a little bit hard to see. They're not like the clearest here. Let me get in here. Here we go. So here's the Geekbench single core benchmarks. Here's the M1. This is where it's a little hard to see. And this is the M4. So the blue is M1. Obviously, green is M2. Red is M3, M4. You can see here, though, this is going to be Geekbench single core. So you can see the massive differences here. Now, here's the Pro version right here of all the chips. You can see the big difference here. And then here's the Max version. You can see the big difference. And then here's the Ultras down here. You can see the big difference here. Now, this is all single core. So single core is going to be, technically very close. But look at the big jump now in the M4 and single core. You can see that it's a lot bigger than these other ones. It's a lot bigger stretch here. So you're going to get better, like just single core performance, like browsing the web and doing stuff like that. It's going to be more snappy. I just thought that was overall very, very interesting that you're going to see that in there. But you can pause that and take a quick peek there. Now, if we go back over here, let me just go over here. This is going to be right in here. This is going to be multi-core scores now, right? So here's M1, M2, M3, M4. You can see the big difference here between the models. Here's the Pro chips, M1 Pro up to M4 Pro. But look how big that yellow line is. Look at this little step here, but look at this big yellow line, how much further it is. Same with the Maxes. Look at this. Now, the Max actually is a little bit different. The Max might be about even or even a little bit less between the M2 and the M3, if you notice that. See this red, how it's stretched? And it's about the same, right? And then this obviously hasn't come out yet. This is the M1 Ultra, M2 Ultra. So we're going to see a massive jump here, probably like off the chart here. But you can see these are the sweet spots in here, the Pro chip. I keep saying the Pro chip's the sweet spot, but look at the difference here. It's crazy between the last Pro and this Pro. And I mean, even look at the M4 chip here versus the Pro here. I mean, it's just a major difference on these chips. So I thought this was just interesting to note if you're going to be thinking about buying or upgrading. This could help you. All right, this next one's just interesting if you have some Apple products that you want to trade in now to get these new M4 Macs. It says, Mac rumors, Apple adjusts trade-in values for select iPad and Apple Watch models. So if you'll notice down here, if you're trading in an iPad, the values went down a little bit, but they're going to give you, for just the iPad, normal iPad, up to $185 right now. It used to be $195. iPad minis up to $210 they might give you with the right model. It used to be $230. But with the Apple Watches, it looks like up to $375 on the Ultra 2. It used to be $265. So they're going up. Apple Watch Series 9, $180 they'll give you now versus $170. Apple Watch Ultra, $295 versus $290. You get the idea. So those watches, they're giving you a little bit more. The iPad's giving you a little bit less. If you have an Android phone like a Pixel or something, up to $150. It looks like those values went down a little bit, but they're going to, maybe you want to trade that in and get like a different computer or something. Just get as much trade-in value as you can. Anyways, just something to throw out there. Thought it was interesting. Okay, I also thought this was kind of interesting, and it makes me take a sip because this is typical Apple, right? So Apple, the Studio Display, we've seen it on sale for like $12.99, $12.59 a couple times. Just last week or 2 weeks ago, it was, I think, $13.50. I showed it on my channel. If you go back here to Amazon now, it's now back up to $15.99, $1,600. So why does Apple do this? Why don't, we know Black Friday is coming up. Why are they back up to the normal cost? Well, because the Mac Mini's out, right? The M4. They know people want it. They know people are going to have to buy it. So they jack that price up. So what I recommend is this. Wait for that to go on sale. Or look at this from B&H right now. Here's the LG Ultrafine 27-inch. This is a 5K IPS monitor. We all know about this one. This is the 5K version, not the 4K. $839 right now. Usually it's like $260 to $300 off right now, at least from their site. So if you want to get another 5K monitor, you don't want to pay that. This is like, look at it. It's about half the cost, right? It's going to be a 5K. It's an option for the Mac Mini M4, right? So definitely consider this one over, the Studio. The Studio is going to be the best, right? Obviously, because it works perfect with your Mac. This is maybe a little bit of a compromise, but when you're spending half as much, this might be the one. Okay, so everyone keeps asking me, like, I have an M2 Ultra or an M2 Max or something. Is it fast enough? Should I upgrade to the M4s and all this stuff? And we keep saying how fast the M4s are. But Apple hasn't even done this themselves. Hear what I say here. 9 to 5 Mac. Apple rumored to upgrade its AI cloud computers with the M4 chip starting next year. So it says Apple has developed special computers that process Apple Intelligence, which is coming out right now. And it says privately in the cloud, and these computers currently run on the M2 Ultra chip. However, it seems that the company already has plans for this coming year to upgrade to the M4s. So here they're making everyone upgrade to the M4s. Granted, these are the Ultras, but they're running on M2 Ultras. They're not even running on the M4s. So is it fast enough? It's fast enough for Apple to run their entire AI suite on with the M2 Ultra, probably the Max as well. So it gives you a little bit of a, hey, if it's fast enough for them, do you really need to upgrade? Okay, this next one's from Apple Insider. I think this is kind of funny or a little bit nervous. It makes me a little bit nervous. It says right here, Apple Insider. Apple in talks with Foxconn to build Apple Intelligence servers in Taiwan. So what could go wrong, right? China's trying to threaten Taiwan like on a daily basis, trying to take over the chip industry. So Apple Intelligence in talks with them to build the servers in Taiwan. What could go wrong there? Who knows, right? But then I kind of even more concerning down here is it says, as a result, Apple has begun exploring other partnerships as well, including China's Lenovo Group and another company called LCFC, a smaller supplier such as Universal Scientific Industrial. Allegedly, Apple's talks involve Lenovo and building servers outside of China. So it says basically Apple's begun rolling out the devices and all this other stuff. So they're saying outside of China. So they're talking with China about building them outside of China. Because why? Because they don't really trust having that in China's possession inside of China. Yet they're going to maybe build them in Taiwan. Now I know Taiwan's obviously not the same thing, but this worries me, obviously, that they're even thinking about this. And if it's a Chinese company doing the servers, even if they're in a different country, is your data safe? I don't know. That's one thing. So I'm sure Apple will do the right thing, but overall, we need to talk about it and know what's going on. So we'll see where these things come out, where the data centers are being built, where the data is being stored. But hopefully it's not like in the mainland China, but we'll see. Okay, a really quick new feature. You either like it or you don't, but I'm going to report it. Mac rumors. macOS Sequoia 15.2 beta adds new AirPlay options. So in the new 15.2 beta coming out, you're probably on 15.1. It's going to come out here shortly. It says with the new macOS Sequoia 15.1 or 15.2, Apple has revamped AirPlay, adding new options for sharing more limited amount of information on the screen when the AirPlay is playing on the Apple TV. So you can either do your entire screen now, you can do a window or app or extended display. The difference between the entire screen is you'll show your entire screen up there. But let's just say you want to just show the Photos app or a very specific app up on the screen so for other people watching and stuff. You can now just do window or app, so you can just pull up the specific window you're in or the specific app and not the entire screen. So they added that feature in 15.2. Again, you either love it or you hate it, or you may never use it, but it's there. Okay, this next one makes me laugh a little bit, and I'll show you why, but Apple Insider says hands-on with Balcon's Vision Pro strap that Apple didn't want to make. So this is the Apple's main strap over here, right? But what they actually did with Balcon is, if you scroll on here, Balcon created this little strap that goes over here. The thing that, makes it so that it doesn't sit on all the weight, on the back of your head. This is what Apple needed to make, this little strap here. And we kind of scroll down, Balcon made it with the clips. It looks very similar, obviously, to the Apple design. It looks pretty good. Here's the strap here. You can see that. If I scroll here, you can see the guy wearing it, but it protects not protects the head, but it puts the weight on top of the head, which is great. But I think Balcon actually, for a little strap, what is this thing? This thing, here's a box here. It's a little cheap box. It's a little strap made out of vinyl or something, it would normally cost $5. Because it's, the Vision Pro and you have to spend $3,500, it says it's a little pricey and, costing around $50 for that little strap. So they figure it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket compared to $3,400. Or $3,500, so let's charge $50 for that strap. $50 for a strap, that's ridiculous. You can get a vinyl strap like that on eBay or for a belt for $3, right? I know, but one thing I got to say though is they had to design it, and only 50 people have these Vision Pros, so they had to make their money back. Another feature coming out really quickly that you may want to know about, this is on iOS 18. It could soon show how long it will take for your phone to charge here, which is kind of interesting, so you can see it in here. So it's going to be a new feature coming out shortly. It says the new framework called Battery Intelligence will calculate the estimated time to recharge the phone, most likely based on the amount of energy that is received by the device. Users will then have the option of receiving a notification with an estimate of how long it will take for the charge to reach 80%, for example. It also mentions that you might be able to set it only to go up to 60, 80, 90, 92%, whatever you want it to stop at, you can do that as well. So just thought it was a cool feature if you're an iPhone user, and just some more features they're adding. Quick note on Apple employees. If you're looking to get a job with Apple, here's from Mac Rumors. It says Apple's employee count grew in 2024, despite reports that the company had at least 4 incidents of smaller layoffs. So even though they had the layoffs, they got rid of who they had to, but they still grew. It says basically as of late September, Apple had approximately 164,000 people. That's a lot of people in their workforce. That's up from 161,000 a year ago. So they went up, 3,000 people? It's something, right? It's better than going down. All right, this next one is one of those stories that when you read it, you're like, is it just me, or are people just spending crazy amounts of money and I don't know where they're getting the money from? Maybe it's the stock market or cryptocurrency or something. I don't know. It says iPhone average selling price soars because of the big demand for the Pro models and more storage. So if you scroll down here, it says consumer demand for the premium phones with extra storage is fueling a surge in the average price of the device, topping $1,000 for the first time. It says with the average retail price now reaching $1,018 as of September 2024. And, it goes on to say that, let me just see here. In recent quarter, 40% of all iPhones were sold were Pro or Pro Max models, a significant jump from 38% last year. So you can see the big jump there. This is raising the cost up to $118 for a phone. I've never spent over $1,000. I've never spent over $800 on my phone, and I refuse to. But people keep doing it, and I know people watching this probably do as well. Maybe they get it from the carriers. I'm guessing most people do, but still, when you spend your own hard-earned money, if you had to slap down a check for $118, would you do it? Okay, sale alert, but you're going to have to do your own research on this. So take a look, Apple Insider. It says Apple's 2024 M4, the M4, brand new one, 14-inch MacBook Pro, is now on sale for just $14.99. That's $100 off. It's usually $15.99. It's already on sale for $14.99. But you're going to do your own research here, because I'll put a link into this, but it says Apple's brand new M4 14-inch is already on sale with pre-order discounts knocking triple digits off the release. This is from Apple Insider. You got to go to Apple Insider here. It says basically you follow this link here. You use the code Apple Insider. I think it takes you to, let me see here, Adorama. I guess Adorama is where they buy it from, but it's still a new device, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways, you guys, I'm just giving you the kind of the lead here. You guys have to do the research. I'm not going to dig into there. But It looks like it's $100 off, which is crazy. So hopefully this will continue until Black Friday coming up and stuff, and we'll get those discounts this year. It looks like they're already starting. Okay, so we're going to wrap up the video. I hope everyone's having a great weekend again. Some cool stories. I'm going to be getting the Mac Mini soon. Doing a lot of testing, doing Thunderbolt 4 testing, some monitor testing, performance testing, you name it. Subscribe to the channel if you can. Helps out the channel. I'm a very small channel. That's why I make videos like this that are kind of, not perfected perfectly, but that's what people like. That's what my people like, right? That's what you guys like. They're not perfect, right? Anyways, without further ado, we'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.